Brendan Rodgers has called for his Leicester City side to return to their standard with spirit and mentality following a bruising Boxing Day defeat to Newcastle. Tonight's destination is Anfield, with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool hoping for a win to edge them towards the Premier League's top four. Welcome to Matchday Live. We've got all the build-up for you, following by live radio commentary. Let's get all the team news with your commentator, John Dunn.
Good evening, Lewis. Let's start with the Foxes. Two changes following the defeat to Newcastle on Boxing Day. We knew Dennis Praet would miss out due to injury. He's replaced by Jose Perez, as he was at the King Power Stadium on Boxing Day. Yuri Tielemans starts tonight on the bench. He's replaced by a returning Wilfred Ndidi. So it's Danny Ward in goal, a defence of Timothy Castagna, Daniel Amati, Wout Faes and Luke Thomas. Wilfred Ndidi will be joined by Keenan Dewsbury-Hall and Bouba Samar in midfield, with Jose Perez joining Patson Daka and Harvey Barnes up front. The Leicester bench: Daniel Everson, Kaglar Soyuncu, Yannick Vestergaard, Lewis Brunt, Papi Mendy, Yuri Tielemans, Mark Albrighton, Kelechi Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy. Just the one change for the hosts under the lights here at Anfield following a 3-1 win at Aston Villa on Boxing Day. Harvey Elliott is in for Fabinho. Otherwise unchanged, Alisson in goal, a back four: Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joel Matip, Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson. In midfield it will be Elliott alongside Thiago and Jordan Henderson, with a front three of Mo Salah, Darwin Núñez and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. On the bench for Liverpool: Adrian, Joe Gomez, Ibrahima Konate, Naby Keita, Konstantinos Tsimikas, Fabio Carvalho, Bobby Clark, Stefan Bajcetic and Ben Doak.
There we go, John Dunn at Anfield. He'll be your commentator later tonight. 8 o'clock kickoff as Leicester take on Liverpool. He'll be joined by Jerry Taggart. My name's Lewis Mason, and joining me in the LCFC TV studio, former Leicester City captain Matt Elliott and Ewan Roberts. Evening, gents.
Evening, Lewis. How you doing, mate?
How are you?
We're very well, Ewan. How are you?
I
think there's a new Christmas present in your ears, isn't it?
No, mate, I've had these a while, Lewis. I think it was my birthday, I think, in June. My better half bought me them. And for stuff like this, they are so handy, mate. They're so handy. I thought you meant my nice green jacket then.
Oh, lovely stuff. Yeah, looking absolutely dashing as always, Ewan. Good to have you with us. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
New Christmas haircut for you, isn't it?
No, I haven't, Matty. I haven't. It's been a week. It's been a lot. But you're the third person to say that to me today. Or you've had a New Year's trim. I haven't had a Christmas trim last Friday. Yeah, so just over a week ago.
Your hair's looking like mine these days. Bit of shredded wheat on top, isn't it?
Let's get down to the football, gents. Two changes for Leicester today, Matt.
Yeah.
Something was going to change probably after Boxing Day, which was a tough old day for Leicester City.
Yeah, I think some people might have looked for maybe more changes, or certainly different changes, but game of opinions and all that. At the end of the day, it's Brendan's that matters. I think Dennis Praet we knew was obviously going to be out. I suppose it will raise a few eyebrows when you look and think, well, Leicester are not exactly overstocked with players in terms of their squad depth. And you see Vardy on the bench and Yuri Tielemans on the bench, and Soyuncu even to a certain degree. So there are areas to consider and converse about, aren't there? I think without a doubt. I don't think Yuri Tielemans was at his best, but name me a player that was probably at the weekend. But I suppose his energy has been expended at the World Cup, etc. So perhaps Brendan's looking at that. Samari from the lineup that we've got there on the team sheet, being moved further forward, which probably suits him a bit more. It's sometimes not reliable enough in that deep holding central midfield role, and Wilfred Ndidi coming back in, I think everyone will be quite pleased with that as well. But decisions to ponder and look at there. Like I say, Vardy didn't start at the weekend, came on, didn't make much headway himself in truth really, but Daka gets another opportunity. But it looks, after the performance against Newcastle, obviously it looks a difficult task, doesn't it, tonight against Liverpool, although Liverpool are not as strong as they have been in times not too far gone by.
Ewan, we of course waited over a month for Premier League action. Now you get 2 games in 4 days, and that's probably absolutely perfect for Leicester City. You want the chance to right those wrongs of Boxing Day, and they've been able to have a quick turnaround to get back on the pitch.
I mean, that's one good thing about the festive period, Lewis. If you have a bad day on Boxing Day, and let's be fair, it was a bad day at the office for for Leicester. I wasn't working Boxing Day, so I got to watch the game. I wish I had been working after watching that 90 minutes of football. But what this Christmas New Year period does, it gives you a chance, a few days down the line to right the wrongs that happened against Newcastle. It was never going to be an easy task against Newcastle. Eddie Howe's got them very well organised, very well disciplined, best defensive record in the Premier League. But Leicester just never turned up. I mean, and having not seen Premier League football for 6-7 weeks, you always get a good crowd on Boxing Day. I think it's the biggest crowd of the season for any club. The Foxes fans turned up, as they always do in their thousands, and left bitterly disappointed because, quite simply, the lads just didn't turn up.
And with this Christmas period, Matt, we were talking a little bit off air. You said actually you quite enjoyed being able to focus on the job at Christmas. There's so much going on at home with family, with all the festive fun, but actually it's a chance for a player to head down. I've got a job to do and I'm going to go away, especially an away trip to Liverpool. You'd think the team have been together to get themselves sorted, especially after Boxing Day.
Yeah, it can be testing. Ordinarily there's probably more fixtures condensed into a short period of time than there has been this season, but don't get me wrong, the players play their fair share of games, don't they, over the course of the campaign. But listen, from a personal front, I had 4 young kids at home as well at the time, and it wasn't a relaxing environment, shall we say, especially over Christmas. So I quite looked forward to, if I'm honest, the away games and getting away and getting some bit of respite and relaxation. And to a degree, that was the same even at Christmas, really. I took it, as most players do, that it's part of the job. Like it or lump it, you have to get on with it. So it becomes the norm. And I don't really see any sort of credence in people who look for problems or issues over the Christmas period. It's just part of being a professional footballer, and you get accustomed to it. But I think Leicester will be angry with themselves, I think, how they played, how they started the game initially against Newcastle. They were so strong mentally as well as physically. They were all over Leicester. Leicester were a bit slovenly, really, a bit sloppy and casual, really, and didn't give themselves a chance in the game. After that first opening, 7 minutes was it? They scored the second goal. Game was done and dusted pretty much. You could tell there was just a feel in the air. Leicester, talk about learning your lessons, and I'm sure Brendan will be adamant, trying that the players are on their mettle from the off. They have to be, but they should know that already, really. And they've had a long time to prepare for it as well, haven't they? Via the break with the World Cup, should be raring to go, but it wasn't the case. They have to be tonight.
Plenty more from Matt and Ewan on the way on Matchday Live. Now, during this festive period for Leicester City, the club are making a concerted effort to help those in need in the local area around the Christmas time. For the 2 home games, so today and also the game against Fulham. So sorry, it was the Boxing Day game and the game against Fulham. There were the donations being made to food banks in the communities in those 2 cities that Leicester visited, and also for the home games, donations are being made to the cities as well who Leicester City have come up against, and that match against MK Dons in the League Cup, a donation was also made there. Another fantastic initiative that Leicester City are doing as a football club in what has been a trying time for many families over this festive period. Right, let's take a look at what else is coming up today on Matchday Live. We'll hear from Luke Thomas, great display against MK Dons in the League Cup. We'll hear what he's had to say about getting back to action. We're taking a trip down memory lane to revisit some of the classic goals that Leicester have scored against tonight's opponents. And we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers ahead of today's game. Liverpool, the opposition tonight, of course. We'll recap that team news for you in a little while when we join John and Jerry at Anfield, and they'll have full commentary for you from 8 o'clock as well. The guys have talked a little bit about that Newcastle game, and we have to talk about the bad days as well as the good days. So let's revisit what happened on Boxing Day at King Power Stadium.
League is back, and it's the first game at King Power Stadium for almost 2 months as Leicester City host high-flying Newcastle United. Both successful in the Carabao Cup. Now it's a chance for the Foxes to win 3 consecutive games in just under 2 years. Newcastle could be finding a way forward here. Joe Ellington into the box, he goes down, and it's a very early penalty. The referee points to the spot. He's going to step up against Danny Ward. It's Woods. It's fired down the middle, and Newcastle United lead by 1-0. Leicester slow out of the box. A late challenge by Amati, of which there can be no complaints about the penalty award. And it is 1-0 to the away side already. On rushing, Miguel Almiron, who checks inside off the right. Carries it towards the edge of the D, back to Almiron inside the area. It's great football. It's 2-0 Newcastle, and what a brilliant goal that is. You have to say, it's absolutely marvellous. He waltzed his way through, in off the right, lovely give and go, and stroked it in off the foot of the post. Trippier in, headed down, it's 3-0. Joe Ellington rising. It's set pieces that hurt Leicester again. Iheanacho inside the box here, takes it down, can't control, fired by Dewsbury Hall, on target, but it is straight at Pope. And that is Leicester's first shot on target after 82 minutes. Newcastle the convincing winners here in the end. It was always going to be hard after 2 goals conceded in the opening 7 minutes.
So of course it was a long wait to see Premier League football back again, and it was a disappointing afternoon and a really tough one for Leicester City. You and Matt obviously gave a little bit of his opinion just a short time ago. What were your thoughts on that game on Boxing Day?
Never got started. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't matter what level you play at, Lewis. You can't give cheap goals away like Leicester did. You know, you 2-0 down after 7 minutes against a good side who've got the best Premier League defensive record in the division. You've got a mountain to climb. The first one, Daniel Amati, who's been really, really good up until the World Cup break. Formed a really good partnership with Woodfass in the heart of that defence. He just gets, it's a sloppy challenge, it's a lazy challenge. And then, Almiron, who's having a fantastic season. I think that was his 8th goal in 8 Premier League games for Newcastle. Just he does Luke Thomas too easily, in my opinion. And then obviously the set piece, the corner kick, Joe Linton, who hasn't scored too many goals since arriving up at Newcastle. It was just too easy, and we showed the highlights there, and hardly any highlights whatsoever from a Leicester City point of view. And these were 2 sides, in full of momentum, full of confidence before the World Cup break. Leicester turned things round, had won 5 of their previous 6 games. Newcastle had won 5 on the spin in the Premier League. But it took Leicester far too long to get. In fact, they didn't get going at all against Newcastle. And sadly for Leicester City, Lewis, Newcastle picked off where they left off before the World Cup, and it was a convincing win. Sadly.
Yeah, they are one of the Premier League's form teams, and you just said they were excellent.
They were in what they set out to do. Leicester were one of the form teams as well, coming into the World Cup. Obviously, the break has worked against them. Certainly, on the evidence of the game of Boxing Day, Newcastle has maintained that mentality, that momentum going through. You can sense it from. Not just from their supporters. Their supporters are always magnificent, but there was just a sort of feeling that something quite big's happening at Newcastle. And we know they've got the backing, etc. But it is going, even better than they could have predicted, really, isn't it? And the way they've gelled, and Eddie Howe has to take a hell of a lot of credit for the job he's done. But Newcastle were very impressive, but they weren't sort of scintillating and overly impressive on the eye, but they're very efficient, and Leicester weren't anything but that, and paid the penalty for it, really. There's a whole catalogue of mistakes there that you pick up another one every time you see it, on the first and the second goal. Both of those, and the third, was obviously weak defending, but just a direct ball in. But the amount of players Leicester had back at that on both instances, but in particular the second goal, and the ease with which Almiron walked through the defence was unbelievable, to be fair. And these are players that, not so long ago, on a good run of form, looked quite secure, and it just shows you how much focus and mentality means to your game. Now, Leicester are capable of producing a performance about it. It's not all of a sudden they're, players who are hopeless and haven't got a chance, etc. They carry on with that approach, they'll be in trouble. But we know that they're better than that, and they can show that tonight. They've had similar situations before, Lou, something where, a poor performance or a heavy defeat, and then they turn it round. The following game, not in the next couple of weeks, the following game. And they've done that, ironically enough, against Liverpool not so long ago, haven't they? So, repeat of that, everything's forgotten about. But some work to do, that's for sure.
Always the man for the positive slant. Love it. That's why we invite him. Matt Elliott, ladies and gentlemen. That is great. We've covered Newcastle. That's done and dusted. Let's put that behind us and look ahead to Liverpool. LCFC TV caught up with Luke Thomas this week.
Luke, let's start by looking back at that game against Newcastle, of course, on Boxing Day. I'm sure there's still a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment on your behalf.
Yeah, definitely. It's a day to forget for us. We weren't at it at all, and we know that ourselves, and we know what we're capable of. So with the game coming up so thick and fast after, it's a real positive for us, and hopefully we can bounce back and get a result.
I know Kiernan spoke very openly, very honestly to us after the game. Now that the dust has settled a little bit, you've had a couple of days, haven't you? Have you been able to pinpoint what happened on the day?
Yeah, we were in the next day, and we looked at a few clips and what we hadn't done right. Obviously, conceding 2 goals so quick is never going to help. So you can never start a Premier League game like that and expect to come out with a result. But for us, it was about looking at what we'd done wrong and then getting back on the training field and getting ready for our next game.
I can imagine there was added disappointment in that opening 7 minutes, as you say, because we've had this break for the World Cup. That was the first Premier League game back, albeit, yes, as a group you played very well against MK Dons, but the first Premier League game back, to be 2-0 down in 7 minutes, that must have been very frustrating.
Yeah, obviously with the first Premier League game back with the fans at home, 32,000 fans there. I'm sure they weren't coming to the game expecting that to happen, and neither were we. So it wasn't a day that we enjoyed, and hopefully we can forget that and move on and stick together and get a result in the next game.
Yeah, as you said yourself, there's a game coming up so quickly, so that's a good opportunity for you to go to Anfield. Okay, tough place to go, but you want to put things right.
Yeah, definitely. And we've put things right before, and we know what we're capable of. If we play our game on the day, we can beat anyone. So we know it's going to be a tough test at Anfield, and hopefully we can come away with a result and get the 3 point if possible.
2 wins against Liverpool in the last 4 games against them. It was only this time last year that you'd suffered a defeat by 3 goals on Boxing Day and then went and beat Liverpool a few days later. So I guess you look at that and think history can repeat itself.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about that as well. We realised that last year we had a bad result against Man City on Boxing Day, and then 2 days later we went back out and we beat Liverpool 1-0. So we know that we can do that, and we know we can bounce back. So hopefully we can show that in the game and get a result.
How have you personally enjoyed this little run in the team? Obviously frustrating what happened on Boxing Day, but just from a personal point of view, again, that must be nice for you.
Yeah, definitely. All I ever want to do is play games get as many games under my belt as I possibly can. So being back out on the pitch, and hopefully I can continue to get games and continue to play well, hopefully.
And in particular in that MK Dons game, you were very influential going forward, weren't you? So I guess that part of the game, there must be confidence, and you think you can do that again, hopefully, in Anfield on Friday.
Yeah, I think for any player, it's about being confident in yourself and being able to show your capabilities and your qualities that you have. So I was happy with my performance against MK Dons, and hopefully I can continue and playing well and show that again against Liverpool.
Luke Thomas speaking to LCFC TV's Dan Bates there. Luke Thomas starts for Leicester at Liverpool tonight. Just to run through their starting 11 once more. Danny Ward in goal, Timothy Castagna, Daniel Amati, Wout Faes and Luke Thomas at the back. In midfield, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Boubacar Soumaré and Wilfred Ndidi. And then the attacking three are Jose Perez, Harvey Barnes and Patson Daka. We will, of course, be crossing to Anfield to catch up with Jerry Taggart and John Dunn very soon. But first, Ewan, with Luke Thomas, you watched him at MK Dons, which was one of his real standout performances for Leicester City so far, I'd say.
He was outstanding on the night. I gave him the man of the match, and I was glad to see that most people agreed with me on social media. I mean, his 2 assists for the goal shows he's got a great range of passing. I think we've known since the first time he broke into the first team, he's got a great engine which you need to play in that position. And when he first got in, maybe the one thing that he had to improve was his final ball, his delivery into the penalty box. I think that has got better the more he's played and the more he's worked on that aspect of his game. But the 2 assists for both goals, he's got time, of course. If you give a good player time, he's got the capability in that left foot to pick people out, which he did with that goal for Jose Perez. And he was outstanding on the day. And, but as I said to you before, Lewis, just before after seeing the highlights, he did get done far too easily for Almiron's goal. And that's a lesson that he will have to learn very quick.
Yeah, a more difficult day for him against Newcastle, of course. But we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers a little later. But what Luke Thomas was saying there was straight away the next day we were back in. They were due to have a day off after the Newcastle game, but it was very much, no, we need to analyse this, see where we've gone wrong and get to work straight away.
Yeah, I don't think it's that complicated, really. I think it's quite startlingly obvious what was wrong. For whatever reason, and Brendan's obviously in a better position to analyse why, but it was about their focus, really. And Kiernan Dewsbury Hall mentioned it about sort of, he didn't say it was complacency, but he could understand what it could sort of come across as that. A little bit sort of sloppy, a little bit casual, and as if because they have had a good run of results of late, people were sort of levelling that at them, as if to say, well, they just go through the motions, and that's not the case up against a side with the quality that Newcastle have. I'm sure the Leicester players wouldn't intentionally go in with that attitude, especially where they are in the league. They're not away from danger yet. I think they'll be all right ultimately. That's not a major concern for me, certainly not at the moment. But there's still a lot of work to do and there's improvements to be made, and Leicester can't afford to play like they did in that opening game. But it was good to see Luke Thomas. I think that was sort of that's a message that's been relayed by the manager, and Luke in this instance is relaying that to the media as well, in terms of remember what you are capable of. Don't be going into this game against Liverpool like nervous, edgy, down in the dumps, because then you're just going to get run over. Remind yourself, and I think it's relevant in any game, especially when there's adversity around, because Leicester are capable of beating, as Luke says, literally anyone in the Premier League on the right day with the right sort of performance. But those performances don't just land on your lap. You have to really dig in. You have to have a little bit of fortune, but you've got to have that spirit, etc. And Brendan Rodgers, rightly, rather than sort of castigating, I'm sure he'll have had a stern word with one or two, or generally, collectively. But at the same time, he's got to maintain a little bit of positivity. And it's not the end of the world all of a sudden. It's one bad result, one below par performance, very below par, but they're capable of turning it around from game to game.
Absolutely, they'll be hoping to do exactly that tonight against Liverpool, a team that Leicester have enjoyed some joy against in recent years. And let's look at some of those best bits.
Venus left it, McAllister. That's a very good goal. Scored by Gary McAllister. Venus moved away. McAllister curled it with his right foot. Lennon. And Heskey's away here. And it's in from Cotty. And Leicester's in-form strikers combine. And Cotty makes it 5 goals in 5 games for the Filbert Street Foxes. Is there too? This could wrap it up. Oh yes, Muzzy is it. And Leicester City are going to join Liverpool on 45 points. A big result for Peter Taylor. For Liverpool, they are now going to have Leicester on their shoulders in the Premiership.
Dean's header forward, and here's Marcus Bent, and Leicester City are still alive here. We are inside the last of the 90 minutes. A fight back of some sorts has begun.
There's Vardy, down towards Nugent. Leicester City come banging back on Liverpool's door. This is not over yet. And it's the Evertonian who strikes at Anfield. Morris finds Schlupp. It's Schlupp! It's unbelievable! Leicester City have ignored the "This is Anfield" sign. They've not been intimidated by the Cop, and they have got Liverpool running for cover on their own pitch now.
What a ball by Morris.
Chance for Vardy to run. And Vardy goes first time and scores a stunner! Leicester's very own fantastic Mr. Fox. Even by his standards, a truly significant and special moment.
Brighton to whip it across, headed out by Milner.
Oh, what a goal, Danny Drinkwater! What a goal!
Talk about Leicester City recovering their mojo, recovering the kind of brilliance that took them to a title. This is sensational.
This is just like watching Leicester City last season, the Premier League champions. How many times do we see Drinkwater shoot from distance and find the bottom corner?
Cheers, Maddison. It's ricocheted back to Maddison. It's sat up nicely. Oh, brilliant! James Maddison, 25 yards out. It's sat up, and he's welling it into the back of the net. Leicester City's 2-goal lead is restored, and it's more magnificent play from James Maddison. 4 goals in his last 5 games.
Some great memories for Leicester City fans there against tonight's opponents, Liverpool, but one very angry Matt Elliott. What's up?
I knew it was going in time, chronological order. I knew I'd missed out, hadn't I? But what about my goal at Anfield? Classic at the far post.
Never happened.
Dear.
Cool yourself, because we've got to hear from Jurgen Klopp and also Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap to get the latest lowdown on Liverpool.
After coming close to completing a quadruple last season, fortunes at Anfield have changed this campaign. The Reds find themselves 15 points off pace setters Arsenal after winning just 7 of their opening 15 games. That means that for Jurgen Klopp and his side, sights need to be set on new targets for the rest of the season.
If we win something and we're able to stay in the Champions League, I think most Liverpool fans would say that this is still a period of transition. We lost one of our biggest, most reliable players in Sadio Mane. We've got the new striker coming in, a slightly different way of playing. So this was always going to be a bit, like I say, a transition. So to be able to ride that transition with an increased threat for the top four from elsewhere, if you look at Newcastle, Man United seem to sort themselves out for now, and Arsenal, it's a lot. Those three weren't really in the mix last year. So just getting to top four is tougher for us than it was last season. So we'd probably just about take it. If we were outside of it, then obviously that's not a good season.
Leicester had now their first game as well, and they didn't have a good start into the game. I think the intensity Newcastle put in was quite exceptional, and for that day, Leicester couldn't cope with it. But Brent is an outstanding manager. Leicester has a lot of great players, so they will. They will try to do it completely differently and against us, and that's where we have to be really aware of what we have to be really aware of. And I'm really the good thing now is so you never know exactly how it feels and stuff like this, but with the break we had and everything is like it feels really fresh again. To be honest, we are really excited. We are really full of desire to go again and go again and go again, and that's what we have to show now on the pitch, obviously, and the next opportunity for us is the Leicester game.
Injuries have been a recurring problem throughout the season for Jurgen Klopp, with the likes of Roberto Firmino, Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota all currently sidelined.
They've been relentless. It's not like in 2021 where we had 3 big injuries all in the same position at centre-half. There've been lots of niggling injuries. I don't think there's been very many players who haven't had a injury. I think Fabinho and maybe Alisson are the only 2 who haven't missed at least 1 game through injury. So from Jurgen's perspective, it's hard for him to be able to make plans, particularly, as I say, when we're trying to do things a little differently this year, when you've got to move people in and out all the time.
There we go, the latest from Liverpool with their manager Jurgen Klopp and also Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap. Busy week at Anfield actually, Ewan, of course, doing some transfer business very early, bringing in Cody Gakpo before the window is even open. That looks like a very shrewd bit of business.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about him until Leicester played PSV in the Europa League. And he impressed me. Young lad, I think he's been brought up in Eindhoven. I think he was the club's youngest ever captain. Performed well at the World Cup, and I think for the money that Liverpool have paid for him, I do think it's a fantastic bit of business. I really do.
Yeah, it shows a really good bit of business ethic as well during the break for the World Cup, not having to focus on matches and getting that bit of business done on the slide. We'll obviously see how he performs, but in terms of Liverpool's performances, how have you found them this season? They've been a little bit off the pace, but seem, as Jurgen Klopp says, we feel fresh, we feel good and are ready to go. Do you feel that they are going to now push back to those previous levels?
Well, you look where they are. What are they? 6th in the league, are they? They're slowly sort of creeping themselves back into a healthy position, aren't they? Without setting the world alight, really. Yeah, but you feel that Liverpool are only going to get better. You know, the quality they have. They're adding to that strength in depth that they've got already. Injury is obviously a big factor. It's been mentioned many times, but the forward line options that they possess, bordering on ridiculous. Like the amount of them. There are 6 at least. Top class centre forward or forward players, shall we say, vying for more often not 3 spots. So if they get even just a couple of the 3. Back healthy and pressing for a place, it's really going to provide competition and then up the levels as well as you go. But Jurgen Klopp again will know better than us what the mindset is at Liverpool. I don't think he's just paying lip service to, when he mentions there about he can feel the energy like ready to go again and make a substantial push, sustained effort. I wouldn't back against it, put it that way, with the quality that Liverpool possess, and probably had a little bit of energy even in this January window in the midfield area as well. But they're still a force, aren't they?
Yeah, they came back with a win, of course, after the break. Let's take a look at their results most recently in the league, because, of course, as I say, back to business with a win against Aston Villa. And before that, before the break, a win against Southampton, a win they would have expected. But maybe that Tottenham game is a little bit of a catalyst. We see that in the middle. 2-1 win away at Spurs. Before that, defeats to Leeds and Forest. You just feel that was actually a massive victory at Tottenham, Ewan.
Well, you do. And I mean, I'm looking at that Leeds result, and that was a shocker. I mean, I think they had an awful night. I think they've had a problem in who partners Van Dijk in the central of defence. Matip's there tonight. Konate's been in. I don't think he's had a regular partner that he can, I wouldn't say rely on, but he's not had a run of games with a regular partner. And I mean, you're sitting next to someone who'll explain that far better than I will, Lewis. But I look at that defeat against Leeds. Liverpool are a hard side to beat at home. We saw the Leicester highlights there, and they have had a lot of joy against Liverpool. But I think the majority of the wins have come at the King Power, have come at home. Now, that defeat at Leeds back in October, that was Liverpool's first defeat in 31 games, Premier League games at Anfield. That shows how hard it is to go there and get any type of result. They won 23 of those 31 games. It's a tough place to go. I've been there on a couple of occasions, never got anything there. And once again, I was shocked, Matty, that they didn't show your winning goal. Back in the late 90s, I think you scored the winner up at Anfield.
I'm not sure it was the winner. Early on it was, yeah. From memory.
Okay.
Now, let's say it's a winner. Let's go with the winner. I like that.
I'm sure it was. I checked this afternoon.
I'm not going to go against you, Ewan. You've got better memory than me.
It's a tough place to go. 17 of Liverpool's 25 points have come from their home games. It's not an easy place to go, Anfield.
You definitely would have featured in that VT if you had scored the winner, I reckon. So I think it wasn't.
But it's not too often Leicester have had victories at Anfield. No. Should have been included. Not that I'd like to go on about it, but...
So, I don't know why he's brought it up. We had just got rid of it. It's all good.
Just got it out of my system as well.
One thing that would have very much been a joy for Jurgen Klopp, Mo Salah on the goal scoring sheet on Boxing Day, Virgil van Dijk as well, and a teenager, Stefan Bajetic, also scored that day. Looks like he'll have a bright future for tonight's opponents. We can cross to Anfield and join our commentary team. We've got John Dunn, who will be talking you through the game from 8 o'clock, and for Leicester City legend, Jerry Taggart's with us. Evening, Jerry.
Good evening, Lewis. Good evening, Matt, Ewan.
Gerald.
How are things in Liverpool this evening, Jerry Taggart?
Surprisingly mild, which I'm over the moon about, because I've got about 5 layers on, Lewis, and I think I've overclubbed it. So I am absolutely sitting here with a big smile on my face, ready to go.
We've already dissected Boxing Day. I don't think we need to go over it again, Jerry. But in terms of tonight, what are you expecting from Leicester? What, as a former player, when you have a result that hurts like that one did, how fired up are you to put things right?
Yeah, I think, we won't go over too much, but for me it's all about the start. They've got to be competitive from the off. They've got to understand when it's on the play and when it isn't on the play from the back. Liverpool will do exactly the same as what Newcastle did to Leicester on Boxing Day, especially at home. And if Leicester, give some sloppy passes away, then Liverpool will be, looking to take full advantage of that. So it's all about understanding the surroundings that you're in, the pressure that you're under, and also starting the game well, being up the pace, being up the speed as quick as possible. And that means when the whistle blows, nonetheless easing yourself into the game. And for me, that's the most important bit. Both teams know each other pretty well, you have to say. There's no surprises here tonight for Leicester City. It's whether or not they can match the tempo, Liverpool's tempo, which invariably they have. Yes, they've sort of lost that a little bit, but you've seen the other night against Aston Villa, a really good away win for them, so they'll be bouncing here tonight at Anfield.
Well, Jerry's calling for Leicester to be at it from the start, and we can, with John Dunn, get our lineup from the start, who will be starting for Leicester tonight. John.
Two changes following the defeat to Newcastle on Boxing Day. Dennis Pratt injured, he's replaced by Jose Perez, and Yuri Tielemans starting tonight on the bench. Wilfred and Ndidi in for him, so it's Ward, Castagna and Marty, Fass and Thomas as a defence and a goalkeeper. In midfield, Samare, Dewsbury, Olin and Ndidi, and up front it's Perez, Daka and Barnes. For Liverpool, just the one change from their Boxing Day win at Aston Villa. Harvey Elliott's in for Fabinho, so it's Alisson in goal, and their defence is Alexander-Arnold, Matic, Van Dijk and Robertson. In midfield it's Henderson, Thiago and Elliott, and up front it's Salah, Nunez and Oxlade-Chamberlain.
And Jerry Taggart at Anfield for us tonight. Of course, there are just under 20 minutes to go until kick-off. Let's hear from the Leicester City manager, Brendan Rodgers.
Well, listen, look, we were very disappointed with the performance on against Newcastle. It was unlike what we'd been for a few months. You know, we've been very strong, very aggressive. But I think if you look 52 seconds into the game, we make the mistake and then we give them the penalty, and within the first 10 minutes you're 2-0 down. It makes it very, very difficult against a team that's high in confidence and playing well. So I think it was one of those ones, we spoke about it yesterday. It's a game that we have to learn from, and to be fair, that there's no better indicator of this group's mentality than if you look back to this time last year. We lost away in Boxing Day against Manchester City. We conceded 6 goals, and in the very next game we were playing Liverpool and we won the game 1-0 with a really fantastic performance, very spirited against a top team. So that tells you everything about the mentality of the team. It was just so disappointing from where we've been to start how we did, and but that's the learning. That's what we have to look at, and we have done, and we now get ready for another tough game at Anfield.
I wonder for you, when you take a side to Anfield, what are the kind of key fundamentals that your side need to have to get a result of any kind, whether that's a win or a draw?
Well, I think that the first 20 minutes of a game at Anfield is always very important. With the crowd and the intensity of which a Liverpool team will want to play, then that's important. So that resilience and that mentality, but also that you need that ability to, if you do go behind, to have that belief, and that's always, I think, in any game of football. There's 2 games. You have the game itself, but before that you have the game of belief. You need to always believe every time you step onto the field, especially against some of the big teams away from home. You need to have that belief and mentality that you can get a result. So for us, like I say, we've got a great opportunity going to a great stadium to play football in, and look to see if we can replicate that spirit and mentality that we did last time we played.
With the few injuries you've picked up recently as well, does it kind of make you think you need to quicken your activity in the January transfer window, or is it kind of the same plans?
No, listen, we've had a period of time now to know what it is we exactly need, and and hopefully we can get that done sooner rather than later. That's the idea. We get players in. We know the areas that we wanted to improve. So hopefully that can take place earlier in the window rather than later.
Leicester boss Brendan Rodgers hoping for a sense of deja vu tonight after a difficult Boxing Day, going to Liverpool and hopefully putting things right tonight. Ewan, Matt, over to you then, gents. Predictions for tonight, starting with you, Ewan.
As I said, Liverpool is a tough place to go. Leicester were the only team to keep a clean sheet against Liverpool in the Premier League last season. They came ever so close in the Carabao Cup. Should have gone through to the semi-final, but lost on penalties up at Anfield. I'm not going to say Leicester are going to win, but I'm going to say they're going to come away with a point. And if they get a point at Anfield, I think it'll be a really positive result.
What about you, Matt? How are you feeling about tonight?
I'm slightly less hopeful, I've got to be honest. Or less confident anyway. I'm as hopeful as Ewan, but I think it's going to be tough. I've got to be honest. I think the way the performance was on Boxing Day, Monday, I think you'll see a stark improvement from that. Certainly in terms of energy, passion that the supporters are looking for. I think Leicester can quite capably provide that. But that's quite a strong team they're up against, Liverpool tonight. Even with the catalogue of injuries that they've got, I think it's going to be a tough night. I don't see Leicester coming away with anything, to be fair. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it from an honest point of view.
We called him Mr. Positive earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm taking that all back. That's gone. That's gone. Let's see what happens at Anfield. On the way, commentary with John Dunn and Jerry Taggart live from Anfield. But if you're watching on our social media feeds, they're about to be paused, but you'll be able to hear the commentary on the website, lcfc.com. We will have analysis for you at half-time, and then, of course, your full-time chat as well. Enjoy the game.
Because memories never fade, no matter how long. We'll still remember the moments of excitement and the impressions of Thailand. Amazing Thailand, now even more amazing.
Biết Sài Gòn.
Chang Beer. We brew friendship.
For the last time in 2022, welcome to LCFC Radio. We're in Merseyside for City's latest Premier League game. We're here at Anfield ready for the Foxes to take on Liverpool. Two teams who haven't quite lived up to pre-season expectations but have hit recent good form. Liverpool starting the evening in 6th position and outside the top 4 at the turn of the year for the first time since 2015 changed into 2016. But they've won their last 3 Premier League games as they chase down a Champions League spot. Leicester City are 13th as they start this evening's game, but they're looking up after a run of 6 wins in their last 8 in all competitions, as you've heard in the pre-match show. The latest game was that disappointing outing against Newcastle on Boxing Day. I'm joined by Jerry Taggart this evening and Jerry Luke Thomas and Brendan Rodgers, both harking back to this time last year where Leicester heavily beaten at the Etihad Stadium by Manchester City. They were injury ravaged as they took on Liverpool at King Power Stadium, but turned up with an unlikely 1-0 win, and everybody in the blue persuasion in a Leicester City shirt hoping that history can repeat itself and an unlikely result can be brought to Anfield this evening.
Yeah, you've got to cling on to whatever you can, I suppose, at this moment in time. Obviously that game was at King Power Stadium. Tonight, we're playing at a packed Anfield. As you say, Liverpool in decent form recently, desperate to claw way back into that top 4. Champions League is a must for a club like Liverpool in this day and age. So they can't afford to drop points tonight. And for Leicester, I suppose the only positive thing to come out of the weekend was that they didn't lose any ground in the league table, and results pretty much going their way on Boxing Day, so that gives them something to cling on to and hopefully put right tonight. But you've just heard Matt in the pre-match show, it's going to be a pretty tall order, and for me you know, Leicester have to make sure that they start this game absolutely on point from the first whistle. No easing your way into it. No manufactured playing out from the back if it's not on. You've got to clear your lines. You see Newcastle do that at Boxing Day to Leicester, you know, no messing about at the back. And you've got to dig deep, and you've got to stay firm, and you've got to stay strong in this game.
Size of the task ahead of Leicester. Liverpool have only lost one Premier League home game this season, although that was against Leeds, so again an unlikely result that took place here at Anfield. And the last time Liverpool failed to score in a home Premier League game, you've got to go back to March 2021. And as Jerry said, all about the start and somehow keep it out the prolific strike force which has been added to. We've seen the new signing on the screen, Gakpo, who's joined the Polish international. Liverpool's firepower has been increased, but from a Leicester perspective, Jerry, players that will need to step up. They will have analysed the game on Boxing Day. They will know they've let themselves down, and they'll want to put on a show in here this evening.
Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? You know, I know Keenan Dewsbury would come out and said, you know, it wasn't good enough, and that's what you want from, you know, your players when they put in a performance like that. You know, it's you got to hold your hands up. But take the criticism when it comes your way, because they will have been criticised, and rightly so, and you've got to take that as a player on board that the performance wasn't good enough. And the problem you've got is if you don't start the game well and the other team does, then it's so hard to wrestle that momentum back. It doesn't matter whether the game's 1-0, 2-0, 0-0. Momentum is everything in football when you're on the pitch, and that's what Leicester found so difficult in that game on Boxing Day. Yes, they went a goal behind, then a second goal behind, but momentum just was not with them, and they allowed Newcastle. They didn't even wrestle the momentum off it. They just allowed Newcastle to sort of steamroller over the top of them, and they can't allow that to happen tonight. Otherwise, you fear the same result or a similar result than Boxing Day.
The other thing that Leicester will cling on to and will feed off was almost a year ago to the day they came here in the League Cup quarter-final and shook Anfield to its foundations, taking a 2-0 lead, then a 3-1 lead. Unfortunately, it was lost late and it went to a penalty shootout. But again, the players involved in that game that are involved again here tonight. Unfortunately, no James Maddison's still injured. But they've got to take heart from that. They've got to take encouragement, and they know that they can gain a result. They can cause problems against this Liverpool side.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Liverpool haven't been firing on all cylinders this season. No, it's fair to say that. And yes, they're at home. They've only lost one game this season at home, but you know, you can't worry about those kind of stats when you're coming into this game as an individual player and as a team. You have to believe that there's more than an ample opportunity for you to get some from this game, to take some from this game. That's what you have to believe. And then as the players out, we'll see what happens. But I say, you know, Liverpool at the minute in decent form, but that's not to say that there's not a few cracks appearing. It's up to Leicester to make sure that when the chances arise, that, you know, they take any opportunities that come their way. Again, it didn't happen on Boxing Day against Newcastle. You know, they had a couple of opportunities to get on the score sheet and they just didn't take them. They can't afford to let that happen again tonight. You know, they have to take any opportunity that comes their way.
Anfield is looking as picturesque as ever. Regular listeners will have heard me and Jerry over the years waxing lyrical about the atmosphere, about the stadium, the stage that he's put on here, particularly in this new main stand. We're at the front of the top tier, the stand that was opened when Leicester City visited back in September 2016, and over to the left side, the Anfield Road, the smallest stand in Anfield. Well, it looked the smallest for much longer. The sight of the roof that is kind of coming above and over the Anfield Road stand, you can just make out the terracing that the seats will be placed into. This is going to be a formidable venue for football very, very soon.
It's gone up quick, hasn't it, as well? Yeah, it's almost done. You can see the seating structure in place. It's all about, you know, I would say tearing the loose ends up and finishing putting, as you say, the rest of the roof on. But yeah, it's just going to enclose the whole place, isn't it, and make it even more noisy and even more of a fortress. So, you know, hopefully we get the opportunity to come here again next season and witness that, because it is one hell of a place, not only to play but to watch.
You go back, to 2015, 2014, who'd have thought the Kop to our right would have been the smallest stand in Anfield. You've got the two-tier Sir Kenny Dalglish stand on the far side. We're in the main stand, the giant standard. No matter where you are in Liverpool, you can see it. It's like a homing beacon when you're driving to this stadium ready to park up for the game. And looks like it's going to be a full house again. And as well as playing against that Liverpool side, Tags, you've got to play against this Liverpool crowd because they will get behind them, particularly early on. And it is all about that start, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the fans here don't really get frustrated when Liverpool aren't playing well, but you know, there are players in the Liverpool team that do get frustrated when things aren't going their way, and so again, it's important to frustrate Liverpool at every opportunity. They're probably going to have the majority of the ball, you know, it goes without saying. So it's up to Leicester to match runs. We've seen the run from Almiron on how it wasn't matched. Those are the types of runs that you'll see all night tonight from Liverpool. You know, little give and goes, running off the ball. And Leicester have to be up to that task, frustrate them. And that's how you frustrate them, is by matching those types of runs off the ball. Don't be giving them time to turn, get physical when you can. You know, and that's how you frustrate a Liverpool team. And then obviously Leicester will try and use the ball. That's the way Brendan wants to play. No problem with that. It's just about playing in the right areas for me. I think it's crucial. We've seen it at West Ham away in the second half, where they went a little bit more direct and stopped playing out from the back so much, and it worked an absolute treat. I'd like to see a little bit more of that this evening.
Anfield welcomes Liverpool and Leicester City as both teams get set to play out their final game of this calendar year. For the hosts, their first home game in 7 weeks, while Leicester will look to shake off their Boxing Day blues and continue the form that has seen them win 6 of their last 8 games in all competitions. The Foxes have recorded 2 wins from their last 3 against the Reds, and they were the only team that Jurgen Klopp's side couldn't score against in last season's Premier League. That was a victory almost a year ago to the day at King Power Stadium, a 1-0 win. The teams lining up in front of us across the halfway line and a chance to run through the 2 starting 11s. For the home side, Liverpool, well, they were in action on Boxing Day evening. It was a 3-1 win in the West Midlands against Aston Villa. One change for them, with Harvey Elliott replacing Fabinho in midfield. So it's Alisson in goal, a defence of Alexander-Arnold, Matip, Van Dijk and Robertson. Elliott will join Thiago and Henderson in midfield, with Salah, Nunez and Oxlade-Chamberlain up front. For Leicester, there's 2 changes following that Boxing Day defeat at home to Newcastle. We knew Dennis Pratt would miss out. He was injured in that game, and in the game he was replaced by Jose Perez. That's the same again at the start of this evening. Yuri Tielemans starts tonight on the bench. His replacement is Wilfred Ndidi, who captains Leicester City this evening. Ward then in goal, former Liverpool goalkeeper, and the defence of Castagna and Marte, Fass and Thomas. In midfield, Ndidi will be alongside Dewsbury Hall and Samore, and then up front it's Jose Perez, Daka and Barnes. Leicester moving towards the left of the centre circle, backed by a bumper travelling support, a full house in the away section, who fill up the bottom left side of the Anfield Road stand. It's quickly developing as Anfield looks to grow even bigger, and as you can hear, the anthem rings around Anfield, You'll Never Walk Alone. Flags waving in the Kop end and scarves held above the heads of the Liverpool supporters around a full house here inside Anfield. As the players start to gather around the centre circle, there will be a mark of respect before kick-off this evening. Quite some sight, Jerry. No matter how many times you're here, it's always breathtaking to look around and just take in the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a poignant song, isn't it? This one as well, before the beginning of the game, and all the fans seem to be up singing it as well. So yeah, it's a great atmosphere, isn't it? You have to say.
I wonder if any Liverpool fan comes without a scarf. It's almost a passage of right. Some of these scarves have been handed down from generation to generation, and the applause rings out.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we pay our respects to 2 much-loved footballers, Liverpool Football Club was deeply saddened by the recent passing of David Johnson at the age of 71. He scored 78 goals in 213 games during 6 years as a Liverpool player. The thoughts of everybody at the club are with David's family and friends at this very sad time. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we also honor Pele, a legend, an icon, and a true great of the game who will forever be remembered. As we hold this period of applause to remember David Johnson and Pele, it will end on the referee's whistle.
One final roar as Liverpool marks the passing of two of their former players, two former greats. As the players on show this evening take off their tracksuit tops and hand them to the kit men that are waiting on the side of the field. Quite straightforward in terms of kits. Liverpool in all red, Leicester City in all blue, and it looks as though Liverpool will defend the Kop end in the first half. Leicester kicking from left to right as we look down from a very high vantage point. Players almost looking like ants on the field with that high up. Great for the analysis, I'm sure. Get a very wide view of the game as the final two Liverpool players head back onto the field from passing their tracksuit tops across, and the flowers that the Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson brought onto the field will be placed behind the goal in front of the Kop end, and we are underway, and it's Leicester